The fog came in low that morning, rolling across the forest road like something with intention. It swallowed the pavement in thick gray waves, muffling sound and turning the towering pines into dark silhouettes that could have been watching or sleeping. The air tasted of damp earth and moss, cold enough to sting the lungs. Nothing moved, nothing made a sound, until she appeared. The little girl materialized from the mist like a ghost taking shape. Her pink dress, the color of dusty roses, hung torn and streaked with mud that looked almost black in the dim light. She ran barefoot down the center of the road, her arms pumping frantically, her breath coming in ragged gasps that tore from her chest. She wasn't jogging, she wasn't playing, she was running for her life. Her feet slapped against the wet asphalt, leaving bloody prints that vanished into the fog behind her. Her dark hair hung in tangled ropes across her face, and when she stumbled, catching herself on trembling hands before pushing upright again, the sound echoed like a gunshot in the silence. Grace Carter was 8 years old, and she was running to save her mother. 2 hours earlier, the world had been different. Grace had woken in the small cabin where she and her mother, Anna, had been staying for the past 3 days. It was supposed to be a vacation, a chance to escape the city, to breathe clean air, to pretend for just a moment that money wasn't tight and life wasn't hard. Anna worked as a waitress at Paradise Club downtown. She pulled double shifts 6 days a week, came home smelling of cigarette smoke and stale beer, counted tips in the bathroom, while Grace pretended not to notice the way her mother's hands shook from exhaustion. They'd saved for 6 months for this trip. 3 days in a rented cabin in the Oregon woods. 3 days of pretending everything was normal. But Vincent DeLuca had found them anyway. Grace had woken to the sound of her mother screaming. She'd stumbled out of bed, her heart hammering in her small chest, and rushed to the window. Through the glass, she'd seen them. 4 men, big and brutal, dragging her mother toward the tree line. Anna fought them. She kicked and clawed and bit, but they were too strong. One of them, the biggest one with a snake tattoo eating its own tail on his left hand, had laughed. His name was Frank Mason, and he was dragging Grace's mother into the woods to die. Grace had run after them. She didn't think, she just ran. Her bare feet hit the cold ground outside the cabin, and she'd followed the sounds of her mother's screams into the forest. The trees closed around her like a cage. The fog made everything strange and distant, but she'd kept running until she found the clearing. The clearing was circular and unnaturally empty. Ancient trees ringed it like spectators, their branches spreading wide overhead, and in the center stood a massive oak tree, its trunk wider than 3 men, standing shoulder to shoulder, its roots digging deep into the earth like claws. Frank Mason stood beneath that tree. Anna Carter hung from its lowest branch. They'd tied her wrists together above her head, looped the rope over the branch, and pulled until her toes barely scraped the ground. Her face was pale, streaked with tears and dirt. Blood trickled from her split lip. Her waitress uniform, the black skirt and white blouse she'd worn to work 3 days ago, was torn and muddy. Grace had hidden behind a tree, her hand clamped over her mouth to muffle her sobs. 3 other men stood in the clearing. They smoked cigarettes and talked in low voices, while Anna hung there, gasping for breath. Frank Mason walked up to Anna and grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. "You thought you could steal from Vincent DeLuca?" His voice was rough, like gravel scraping against stone. "You thought nobody would notice?" "I didn't steal anything." Anna's voice came out hoarse and broken. "The register was short, but I didn't take that money. I swear. Please. I have a daughter. Please." Frank backhanded her across the face. The sound cracked through the clearing like a whip. Grace bit down on her hand to keep from screaming. "Vincent doesn't care about your excuses," Frank said. "He cares about sending a message You work for him, you don't skim off the top. You don't ask questions. You don't look at things you're not supposed to see. Anna's eyes went wide. I didn't see anything. Liar. Frank stepped back, gesturing to the other men. String her up proper. Let her hang there while we find the kid. The men pulled on the rope. Anna's feet left the ground completely. She gasped, choking, her entire body weight suspended by her bound wrists. The rope bit into her skin, cutting deep. Blood began to trickle down her arms. Mommy! Grace hadn't meant to scream. The word just tore out of her throat, raw and desperate. All four men turned toward her. Frank smiled. There she is, he said. Grab her. Grace ran. She crashed through the underbrush, branches whipping across her face and arms. Behind her, she heard heavy footsteps pounding after her, a man's voice shouting. But fear gave her speed, and she was small enough to slip through gaps the men couldn't follow. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs felt like they might collapse, until she burst out of the tree line onto the road. And that's when she'd seen them. Two black Mercedes sedans sat in formation across both lanes, engines idling with the deep purr of expensive machinery. They blocked the road completely, as if they'd been waiting for something. Or someone. Chrome gleamed through the mist. Tinted windows reflected nothing but gray. The vehicles looked like they'd been carved from shadow and steel. Grace didn't hesitate. She ran straight toward them, her voice breaking the morning open. Help! The word ripped from her throat, raw and desperate. Please, someone help! They hung my mommy on a tree. The door of the lead car opened. A man stepped out with the unhurried grace of someone accustomed to control. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit with a black shirt beneath. No tie. The suit jacket hung open, revealing intricate tattoos that covered his chest and crawled up his neck in bold patterns, symbols and script that told stories most people wouldn't want to read. More ink decorated both his hands, visible even from a distance. His dark hair was slicked back, his face composed and unreadable. He looked dangerous in the way expensive things often are, polished, lethal, beautiful. His name was Dominic Russo, and in certain circles, that name carried weight that could crush bones. Behind him, two more car doors opened in synchronized silence. Three men emerged, each wearing dark suits with white shirts and ties, each moving with the same disciplined precision. They spread out naturally, hands resting near concealed weapons, eyes scanning the fog-choked tree line with the practiced vigilance of soldiers. These were not bodyguards. They were extensions of Dominic's will. Victor Kane, 42 years old, with gray streaking his temples, moved to Dominic's right. He'd been a Navy corpsman before Dominic recruited him. He knew how to save lives and how to take them with equal efficiency. Leo Torres, 29, and lean as a whip, positioned himself to the left. Former Marine sniper. He could put a bullet through a keyhole from 500 yards. James Chen, 26, with quick eyes and quicker hands, stayed by the second car. Ghost, they called him. He could disappear into crowds or computer systems with equal ease. Grace stumbled toward Dominic, her legs finally betraying her. She collapsed to her knees, 3 feet from his polished Italian leather shoes, mud splashing across the pavement. Her hands shot out toward him, fingers curled like claws. They hung my mommy on a tree, the words tumbled out between gasps. Please, you have to save her. Please. Dominic looked down at her, without moving. His expression didn't change. He didn't kneel. He didn't reach out. He simply studied her with dark eyes that missed nothing. The rope burned circling her thin wrists like brutal bracelets, the way her entire body shook with exhaustion and terror. The dirt under her fingernails from clawing at something or someone. The blood on her feet from running barefoot over rocks and roots. and her eyes, 8 years old, and already she'd seen things no child should ever see. Dominic knew those eyes. He'd seen them before, 26 years ago, staring back at him from a warehouse floor, where his 8-year-old sister had died because no one came to save her. Victor stepped forward, his hand moving toward his weapon. "Boss?" Dominic raised one hand. Silence fell instantly. The little girl's sobs filled the void, desperate and broken. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "She's still there. They left her hanging. Please." Dominic tilted his head slightly, still watching her, calculating, reading. The child wasn't hysterical. She was traumatized. There was a difference. He'd seen enough of both to know. "Where?" His voice was quiet, controlled, carrying no emotion whatsoever. Grace lifted a shaking hand and pointed toward the forest, toward a wall of trees that disappeared into fog, so thick it looked solid. "In there, not far. I ran so fast." Her voice broke completely. She doubled over, pressing her muddy forehead against the cold pavement. Dominic glanced at his men. No words were spoken. None were needed. The engines shut off one by one. Car doors closed with soft, final clicks. Victor, Leo, and James moved into formation around Dominic without being told, hands now resting openly on weapons concealed beneath their jackets. Dominic looked down at Grace again. "Stand up." Grace struggled to her feet, swaying dangerously. Dominic caught her elbow. Not gently, but not roughly either. He steadied her. She stared up at him with wide, red-rimmed eyes that held more hope than any child should ever have to place in a stranger, especially a stranger like him. "You lead," Dominic said simply. "We follow." Grace nodded frantically, already turning toward the forest. She took 3 steps before her legs buckled again. This time, Dominic didn't wait. He lifted her effortlessly, settling her against his side with one arm. She weighed almost nothing, all bone and terror and desperate courage. "Hold on." Not a suggestion, a command. She wrapped her arms around his neck and buried her face against his shoulder. He felt her tears soaking through his expensive suit jacket. He ignored it. Dominic moved toward the tree line, his men falling into tactical formation around him. Victor ahead, scanning for threats. Leo and James on the flanks, weapons drawn but held low. They entered the forest as a single unit, swallowed immediately by fog and shadow. The trail Grace directed them down was barely visible. More animal path than human road. Branches clawed at their suits. Roots tried to trip them. The fog grew thicker, pressing close like something alive and curious. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in as many steps. Dominic felt Grace's heartbeat slamming against his chest, a frantic percussion that matched the increasing tension in the air. His men moved silently, weapons now raised, eyes sharp. They knew this feeling. They'd walked into ambushes before. But this was different. This felt heavier, wronger. Victor held up a fist, signaling stop. They were close. Dominic could hear it now, a faint sound, almost lost in the fog. The creak of rope, the soft whisper of wind through branches. And beneath it all, a woman's labored breathing. The forest opened suddenly, the trees pulling back like curtains revealing a stage. A clearing lay ahead, circular and unnaturally empty. And in its center stood a massive oak tree, ancient and gnarled, its branches spreading wide like judgment. Hanging from those branches, swaying slightly in a breeze that didn't exist anywhere else, was a woman, Anna Carter, Grace's mother. "Mommy!" Grace screamed the word, her small body convulsing in Dominic's arms. He tightened his grip on her, his other hand moving to his weapon. 4 men stood in the clearing. They'd been sitting, smoking, talking. Now they jumped to their feet, hands reaching for guns tucked into waistbands. But they were too slow. Dominic's men were already moving. Leo dropped to one knee, his pistol coming up in a smooth, practiced motion. He fired twice. Two men dropped, holes appearing in their foreheads before they even cleared their weapons. James went left, putting 3 rounds into the third man's chest. The man stumbled backward, crashed into a tree, and slid down, leaving a red smear on the bark. Victor charged the fourth man, the big one with the snake tattoo on his hand, Frank Mason. He tried to run, but Victor was faster. He tackled Frank from behind, driving him face first into the dirt. The entire engagement lasted 7 seconds. Dominic walked into the clearing, Grace still in his arms, and looked up at Anna Carter. She hung limp against the ropes, unconscious. Her face was gray, her lips blue. Blood had dried in dark trails down her arms, from where the rope had cut into her wrists. "Victor," Dominic said quietly. "Check her." Victor was already moving. He left Frank groaning in the dirt, bleeding from a broken nose, and sprinted to the tree. He pressed 2 fingers against Anna's neck, searching for a pulse beneath cold skin. "She's alive," he called back, his voice tight with relief. "Barely. Pulse weak. Hypothermia setting in. Rope trauma severe. She needs medical attention now." Dominic set Grace down gently, turning her face away from the sight of her mother hanging limp against the ropes. "Don't look," he said quietly. It wasn't comfort. It was an order. Grace buried her face deeper into his suit jacket, her small body shaking with sobs that had no sound left in them. She'd screamed herself empty. "Leo, get her down," Dominic ordered. "James, catch her." Leo holstered his weapon and began scaling the tree with the efficiency of someone who'd done harder climbs under worse conditions. James positioned himself beneath Anna, arms raised, ready to catch her weight the moment the ropes were cut. Dominic pulled out his phone with his free hand, dialing without looking at the screen. The call connected on the first ring. "I need a medical team," he said, his voice clipped and businesslike. "Woman, mid-30s, exposure, rope trauma, possible shock, discrete location, 20 minutes. He paused, listening. "No, not the clinic, the safe house on Riverside. Send Dr. Torres." He ended the call and pocketed the phone. Above them, Leo's tactical knife sawed through the thick rope with deliberate care. "Ready?" he called down to James. "Go." The rope parted with a sound like a sigh. Anna's body dropped, and James caught her with surprising gentleness, lowering her immediately to the damp ground. Victor was beside her in seconds, checking vitals, assessing damage with hands that moved like a doctor's, despite belonging to a man who specialized in causing harm, not healing it. "Pulse still weak but steady," Victor reported, his fingers moving from her neck to her wrists, examining the deep rope burns that had cut into flesh. "Possible hypothermia, shock. She needs warmth and fluids immediately." Grace tried to run to her mother, but Dominic held her back with quiet firmness. "Not yet. Let them work." "But she's my mommy." "She's alive because we got here in time. She stays alive if you let my men help her." Dominic's dark eyes held the girl's gaze. "Trust me or don't. But if you trust me, you listen." Grace swallowed hard and nodded, her small hand gripping Dominic's jacket so tightly her knuckles went white. Behind them, Frank Mason groaned and tried to crawl away. Victor's boot came down on his back, pinning him to the earth. "Boss, what do you want me to do with this one?" Dominic looked at Frank. This man who'd hung a woman from a tree and left her to die, who'd terrorized an 8-year-old child, who'd done it all on someone else's orders, never questioning whether it was right or necessary, just following orders, always following orders. "Bring him," Dominic said. "He's going to tell us who sent him." Frank tried to speak, blood bubbling from his broken nose. Vincent DeLuca sent us. She stole from him. $3,000. She had to be made an example." "Vincent DeLuca," Dominic repeated, his voice flat. He knew that name. Everyone in his world knew that name. Vincent DeLuca ran protection rackets and illegal gambling on the east side of the territory. Small-time operator, vicious. The kind who compensated for lack of power with excessive brutality. And Vincent DeLuca was the brother of Anthony DeLuca, the man Dominic had killed 5 years ago. "Get everyone to the cars," Dominic ordered. "We're leaving, now." Leo and James carefully lifted Anna, carrying her between them like she weighed nothing. Victor hauled Frank to his feet, Zip tying his hands behind his back. Grace clung to Dominic as he carried her back toward the road. "Is Mommy going to be okay?" Her voice was so small, so fragile. "Yes." "How do you know?" "Because I won't let her die." It was a promise Dominic had no right to make, but he made it anyway, because 26 years ago, no one had made that promise to his sister Sophia, and Sophia had died alone in the dark. This child would not suffer the same fate. The drive to the safe house took 18 minutes. Grace sat in the back seat of the Mercedes, pressed against Dominic's side, while Victor drove and James rode shotgun. Behind them, Leo drove the second car, with Anna laid across the back seat, a blanket tucked around her unconscious form. Frank Mason was in the trunk. Grace hadn't said a word since they left the forest. She just stared straight ahead, her small hand still gripping Dominic's jacket, her eyes seeing things no child should have to see. Dominic didn't try to make her talk. Sometimes silence was the only mercy available. The safe house appeared through the fog, a large brick building on the edge of the city, surrounded by high walls and iron gates that opened automatically as they approached. Security cameras tracked their progress up the long driveway. A medical team waited at the entrance. Dr. Torres, a woman in her 50s with steady hands and no questions, directed her staff as they transferred Anna onto a gurney. "Vitals?" she asked Victor. "Pulse 62, respiration shallow, core temperature dropped, severe rope burns, possible nerve damage in both wrists. Unconscious for approximately 40 minutes. Dr. Torres nodded, already moving. "Get her inside. I need warm fluids, blankets, and prep the medical suite. Move." The team disappeared through the doors, taking Anna with them. Grace started to follow, but Dominic's hand on her shoulder stopped her. "They need space to work," he said quietly. "You'll see your mother soon." "What if she dies?" The question hung in the air between them. Dominic knelt down so he was eye level with Grace. "Your mother fought to stay alive so you could find help. You ran through those woods, barefoot and bleeding, and you found me. You did everything right. Now you have to trust that she'll keep fighting. But what if she doesn't wake up? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But right now, she's alive. That's what matters." Grace studied his face, searching for something. Truth, maybe. Or just someone strong enough to believe in when her own strength ran out. "Okay," she whispered. Dominic stood, gesturing to Victor. "Take her inside. Get her cleaned up, fed, and warm. She stays in the room next to her mother's. Guard the door." "Yes, sir." Victor extended his hand to Grace. "Come on, kid. Let's get you taken care of." Grace looked up at Dominic one more time. "Thank you for saving my mommy." "You saved her," Dominic said. "You're the one who ran for help. You're the brave one." Grace managed a small, trembling smile. Then she took Victor's hand and let him lead her inside. Dominic watched them go, his jaw tight. Leo appeared at his elbow. "Boss, what do you want done with Frank Mason?" "Put him in the basement. I'll deal with him later." "And Vincent DeLuca?" Dominic's eyes went cold. Vincent DeLuca just made the worst mistake of his life. He came after a woman and child, in my territory, without permission. He turned to face Leo. "Find out everything about Vincent DeLuca. Where he operates, who protects him, where he feels safe. I want to know his schedule, his habits, his weaknesses, everything. You're going after him. He hung a woman from a tree and terrorized an 8-year-old child. What do you think I'm going to do?" Leo nodded slowly. "I'll have the intel in 6 hours. Make it 4. Leo disappeared to make calls. James materialized from the shadows, tablet in hand. Boss, I ran the woman's information. Anna Carter, 34 years old. Works as a waitress at Paradise Club. That's Vincent DeLuca's front operation. So she worked for him? Yes. And according to financial records I pulled, she's been making payments to DeLuca for the past 8 months. Looks like a loan. High interest. How much does she owe? Started at $47,000. She's paid back $8,000. With interest, she still owes $63,000. Dominic's expression didn't change. But something cold and dangerous settled in his chest. He loaned her money, then claimed she stole from him as an excuse to kill her. That's what it looks like. But there's more. James swiped to another screen on his tablet. Anna Carter has been working the books at Paradise Club for the past 3 years. She's smart, detail-oriented, and 3 weeks ago, there was a major discrepancy in the accounts. $15 million moved through the club in a single month, way more than a small gambling operation should be handling. Money laundering, Dominic said. That's my guess. And if Anna saw those numbers, if she started asking questions, Vincent would have wanted her silenced. So this was never about $3,000. It was about keeping her quiet. Looks that way. Dominic stood silent for a long moment, processing the information. Anna Carter was a waitress trying to pay off a debt. A single mother doing her best to survive in a world that crushed people like her without a second thought. She'd seen something she wasn't supposed to see, and Vincent DeLuca had decided she needed to die for it. And he'd done it in front of her 8-year-old daughter. James, Dominic said quietly, clear Anna Carter's debt. All of it. $63,000. Pay it off tonight. Boss? She doesn't owe Vincent DeLuca anything. Not anymore. Transfer the money from my personal account. Understood. And find out if she has any other debts. Medical bills, rent, whatever. I want a full financial picture by morning. James nodded and disappeared to execute the orders. Dominic walked to the window of the safe house, looking out at the fog still clinging to the grounds. 26 years ago, his sister Sophia had been 8 years old when she died. Beaten and broken in a warehouse by men who thought she didn't matter. Because her family was poor. Because no one would care. Because power meant you could do whatever you wanted to people who couldn't fight back. Dominic had been 12. Too young to save her. Too weak to matter. He'd held her body and sworn that if he ever had power, he would use it differently. That he would stop men like the ones who killed Sophia. That no child would die the way his sister had died. It had taken him 26 years to build that power. An empire constructed on violence and fear and absolute control. He'd told himself it was necessary, that the world was brutal, and only the brutal survived. But today, a little girl had run out of the fog and trusted him to save her mother. And for the first time in 26 years, Dominic Russo felt like maybe his power meant something more than just survival. Maybe it meant protection. Maybe it meant justice. Maybe it meant giving Grace Carter something he'd never been able to give Sophia. A chance. Grace Carter woke in a bed that wasn't hers. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. The room was too big, the ceiling too high, the sheets too soft. Sunlight streamed through windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, painting everything in shades of gold and white. Then, memory crashed back like a wave. The forest, the tree, her mother hanging, limp and broken. The man in the black suit who'd appeared from nowhere, like something out of a dream or a nightmare. She still wasn't sure which. Grace sat up fast, her heart hammering. "Mommy?" The door opened immediately. Victor Kane stepped inside, carrying a tray with food. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. The kind of breakfast Grace hadn't seen in months, not since money got tight and meals became whatever was cheapest at the corner store. "Easy," Victor said, his voice gentle. "Your mom's okay. She's in the next room. Dr. Torres is with her." "I want to see her." "You will. Soon as the doctor says it's okay. Right now, You need to eat. Grace wanted to argue, wanted to push past him and run to her mother. But something in Victor's eyes stopped her. Not hardness, kindness. The kind of tired kindness that came from seeing too much pain and wanting to prevent more. She took the tray. Where am I? Somewhere safe. Mr. Russo's property. Nobody can hurt you here. Is he here, Mr. Russo? He's downstairs, handling things. Grace picked at her eggs, her appetite gone, but her body desperate for fuel. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, a lifetime ago, when everything was still normal. What happened to those men? The ones who hurt my mommy? Victor hesitated. Grace looked up at him with those two old eyes. I'm 8, not stupid. They're dead, aren't they? Victor sat down in the chair beside the bed. 3 of them are. The 4th one is alive. Mr. Russo is questioning him. Good. The word came out hard and cold. They deserved it. Victor studied her face. Most kids would be traumatized by violence, even violence done to protect them. But Grace Carter wasn't crying, wasn't shaking. She was angry. Righteously, terribly angry. You're tough, Victor said. I have to be. It's just me and Mommy. Nobody else cares about us. Mr. Russo cares. Grace's eyes narrowed. Why? He doesn't know us. Why would he help? Victor was quiet for a long moment. He had a sister once, Sophia. She was 8 years old, just like you. And when bad men hurt her, nobody came to help. Nobody cared enough to stop it. She died. And Mr. Russo has spent his whole life making sure that never happens again. Grace absorbed this information slowly, her young mind working through the implications. So he saved me because I remind him of his sister. Maybe at first, but he also saved you because it was the right thing to do. And because you were brave enough to find him. I wasn't brave. I was scared. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. You ran through those woods to save your mother. That's the definition of brave. Grace looked down at her eggs, her throat tight. Is Mommy going to be okay? Really? Dr. Torres is the best. If anyone can help her, it's the doctor. But your mom was hurt bad. It's going to take time. Time. Grace hated that word. Time meant waiting. And waiting meant not knowing. Not knowing was worse than almost anything. A soft knock came at the door. Victor stood. That'll be Mr. Russo. You want to see him? Grace nodded quickly. The door opened, and Dominic Russo stepped inside. He'd changed clothes. Gone was the blood-spattered suit from this morning. Now he wore black slacks and a charcoal gray shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal the intricate tattoos covering his forearms. His dark hair was still slicked back, his expression still unreadable. But when he looked at Grace, something shifted in his eyes. Something almost soft. How are you feeling? He asked. Okay. Victor said Mommy is getting better. She is? Dr. Torres says she'll make a full recovery. It'll take time, but she'll be fine. Grace's shoulders dropped with relief, so profound, it hurt. Can I see her? In a little while. She's sleeping right now. Her body needs rest. Okay. Dominic moved to the window, looking out at the grounds below. Gardens stretched in neat rows, perfectly maintained. High walls surrounded everything. Security cameras tracked every angle. This was a fortress, and Grace was inside it. Grace, Dominic said without turning around. I need to ask you some questions about what happened. Can you do that? Yes. He turned to face her. The man who hurt your mother, Frank Mason. He said someone sent him. A man named Vincent DeLuca. Do you know that name? Grace's face went pale. Mr. DeLuca owns Paradise Club, where Mommy works. He's mean. Mommy's scared of him. Why is she scared of him? Grace's hands twisted in the bedsheet. Because Mommy owes him money. A lot of money. From when Grandma was sick last year. The hospital bills were really high, and we didn't have insurance. And Mr. DeLuca said he'd loan us the money, but we had to pay it back with extra. Interest, Dominic said. I guess. I don't really understand it. But every month, Mommy gives him almost all her tip money. And it's never enough. He says we still owe more. Dominic's jaw tightened. Did Mr. DeLuca ever hurt your mother before? Grace looked down. Sometimes she'd come home with bruises. She said she fell. But I'm not stupid. I know what bruises from falling look like. And I know what bruises from being hit look like. Victor's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Dominic's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Did your mother ever talk about leaving? Getting a different job? She tried. But Mr. DeLuca said if she quit, she'd still owe him the money, and he'd make sure nobody else in the city would hire her. So she stayed. And recently? Did anything change? Did your mother seem more scared than usual? Grace thought about this, her young face scrunched in concentration. 3 weeks ago, she came home really late, like 2 in the morning. She was shaking. I asked what was wrong, and she said she'd seen something at work, something bad. But she wouldn't tell me what. She just said we needed to be careful. And that's when you went to the cabin? To hide? Yeah. Mommy said we needed a vacation. But I think she was running away. From Mr. DeLuca. Dominic nodded slowly. Everything James had told him lined up. Anna Carter had seen the money laundering operation. $15 million moving through a small club that should have been handling maybe $50,000 a month. She'd seen it, and Vincent DeLuca knew she'd seen it. So he'd sent Frank Mason to kill her, to hang her from a tree like a warning sign. And he'd done it in front of her 8-year-old daughter. Grace, Dominic said quietly, I'm going to make sure Mr. DeLuca never hurts anyone again. Do you understand what that means? Grace looked up at him with those impossibly old eyes. You're going to kill him. I'm going to stop him. How I do that depends on what happens next. Good. I hope you do kill him. He deserves it. Victor cleared his throat. Grace, you shouldn't talk like that. Why not? It's true. He tried to kill my mommy. He would have killed me too if you hadn't come. She turned back to Dominic. Mr. Russo, will you promise me something? What? Promise you won't let him hurt my mommy again. Even after we leave here. Even when we go home. Promise he can't get to us. Dominic walked to the bed and knelt down, so he was eye level with Grace. I promise, he said. Vincent DeLuca will never touch you or your mother again. And you're not going home. Not yet. You'll stay here until it's safe. How long will that be? As long as it takes. Grace studied his face, searching for lies, finding none. Okay, I trust you. Those 3 words hit Dominic harder than any bullet ever had. A child's trust was a fragile, precious thing. Once broken, it could never be fully repaired. Grace Carter had every reason not to trust anyone. Her world had been shattered. Her mother nearly killed. She'd run through darkness and fog with no guarantee that anyone would help. But she'd found Dominic, and she'd chosen to trust him. He would not let her down. In the basement of the safe house, Frank Mason hung from chains. Not like Anna had hung. Not to kill, just to hurt. His arms were stretched above his head, wrists locked in steel cuffs attached to a beam. His toes barely touched the concrete floor. Blood dripped from his broken nose, pooling beneath him in dark drops. Dominic entered the room with Leo at his side. Frank's eyes widened with fear. Please, he gasped. I was just following orders. DeLuca said do it, so I did it. I'm just a soldier. I'm nobody. Dominic walked a slow circle around Frank, his footsteps echoing in the concrete chamber. You hung a woman from a tree and left her to die. You did it in front of her 8-year-old daughter. You're not just anything. You're a man who made choices. Bad ones. I had no choice. DeLuca would have killed me if I didn't. Then you should have died with your conscience intact. Dominic stopped in front of Frank, his dark eyes flat and empty. Tell me about Vincent DeLuca. Everything. Frank talked. He talked for 20 minutes straight, words tumbling out in a desperate rush. He told Dominic about Vincent's operations, the gambling, the loan sharking, the protection rackets, the money laundering pipeline running through Paradise Club, cleaning cash for a Mexican cartel operation. He told Dominic about Anna Carter seeing the books, about Vincent panicking, about the order to eliminate her quietly. "Make it look like an accident," Vincent had said. "Or make it look like a message. I don't care which. Just make sure she's gone and the kid can't talk." Frank kept talking until there was nothing left to say. Then he looked at Dominic with pleading eyes. "I told you everything. Can I go now?" Dominic was quiet for a long moment. "Put him in the holding cell downstairs. I'll decide what to do with him after I deal with Vincent." Frank's face went white. "You can't keep me here forever. DeLuca will—" "Vincent won't be in a position to help anyone," Dominic interrupted. "Including you." Leo unhooked Frank from the chains, and Zip tied his hands behind his back. "Come on, let's go." He dragged Frank toward the stairs. Frank twisted around, shouting back at Dominic. "You think you're better than me? You're just like us. You kill people. You run an empire built on blood. You're no hero, Russo." Dominic's expression didn't change. "I never said I was a hero. But at least I don't hurt children." Leo hauled Frank up the stairs and out of sight. Dominic stood alone in the basement, surrounded by silence and old ghosts. Frank was right, in a way. Dominic Russo was no hero. He'd killed more men than he could count, built his empire on violence and fear, made people disappear when they became problems. He lived in a world of shadows and blood, where morality was a luxury, and survival was the only law that mattered. But he'd never hurt a child. Never would. That was the line he wouldn't cross. His phone buzzed. A message from James. Dominic climbed the stairs back to the main floor, pulling out his tablet as he walked. James's report loaded quickly. Vincent DeLuca, 45 years old, ran operations on the east side for the past 12 years. Small time compared to the major players, but vicious enough to carve out territory and hold it. Owned 3 businesses as fronts: Paradise Club, a laundromat, and a pawn shop, all 3 used for money laundering. Connected to the Sinaloa cartel through a liaison named Rodriguez. $15 million a month flowing through his operation. That was serious money, the kind that bought protection from cops, judges, politicians. Vincent had 20 armed men on payroll, former gang members, ex-cons, soldiers who'd do anything for cash and wouldn't ask questions. He had FBI agent Marcus Birch in his pocket. Birch ran interference, made sure investigations went nowhere, warned Vincent when heat was coming. But there was more. Vincent DeLuca had a brother who died 5 years ago, Anthony DeLuca. Dominic remembered Anthony. Young, ambitious, cruel. He'd been running a sex trafficking operation, moving girls through the Northwest Corridor. Dominic had shut it down, personally. 23 women freed. Anthony dead in the warehouse where he'd kept them. Vincent had sworn revenge, but then he'd gone quiet, retreated to his small territory, kept his head down, built his money laundering operation. Until now. Dominic scrolled to the last page of the report. Current location, Paradise Club. Present, since 8 p.m. 20 guards on site. Expecting you. Dominic smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Vincent DeLuca knew Dominic would come. Knew that hanging Anna Carter in Dominic's territory, even without permission, even as an act of revenge deferred, meant war. Vincent was ready. Good. Dominic preferred his enemies ready. Made it fair. Anna Carter woke slowly, consciousness returning in fragments. White ceiling, soft bed, the smell of antiseptic and something else. Coffee. Real coffee. Not the instant kind, from a jar. She tried to sit up and gasped. Pain lanced through her wrists, sharp and immediate. Easy, a woman's voice, calm and professional. Don't move too fast. Anna turned her head. A woman in her 50s stood beside the bed, checking a monitor. She wore scrubs and had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I'm Dr. Torres. You're in a secure medical facility. You're safe." "Grace," Anna's voice came out hoarse and broken. "Where's my daughter? Is she okay?" "She's fine. She's in the next room. She hasn't left since she got here. Do you want to see her?" "Yes, please." Dr. Torres walked to the door and opened it. Grace burst through like she'd been waiting on the other side with her hand on the knob, which she had been. "Mommy!" She ran to the bed, then stopped short, afraid to touch her mother, afraid of hurting her. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "Come here, baby." Grace climbed carefully onto the bed, curling into her mother's sin. Anna wrapped her good arm around her daughter, holding her close, breathing in the smell of her hair. "I thought I'd never see you again," Anna whispered. "I ran, Mommy. I ran so fast. And I found Mr. Russo, and he came and he saved you." "Mr. Russo?" "The man in the black suit. He's really nice. Well, not nice exactly. He's scary, but he's nice to me." Dr. Torres cleared her throat. "I'll give you two some privacy. But Mrs. Carter, Mr. Russo would like to speak with you when you're feeling up to it. Now is fine." "Are you sure? You've been through significant trauma. I need to know what happens next. Please." Dr. Torres nodded and left the room. 5 minutes later, Dominic Russo walked in. Anna tensed, pulling Grace closer. Dominic stopped just inside the door, giving them space. "Mrs. Carter, I'm glad you're awake. Grace says you saved us. Thank you." "Your daughter saved you. She's the one who ran for help." Anna looked down at Grace, pride and pain warring in her expression. "She shouldn't have had to." "No, she shouldn't have." Dominic moved to the window, looking out rather than at Anna, making himself less threatening, less imposing. "Vincent DeLuca sent men to kill you. Frank Mason and 3 others. 3 are dead. Frank is in police custody with a full confession. He won't be a problem anymore." Anna's hand tightened on Grace's shoulder. "Vincent will send more. He always does. He doesn't let things go. He won't have the chance. I'm going to end this tonight." "You can't. He has too many men. Too much protection. The police won't help. He owns half of them." "I'm not asking the police for help." Anna looked at him. Really looked at him. At the tattoos, the cold eyes, the way he stood like a man accustomed to violence. "You're not a good man, are you?" she said quietly. "No. But you helped us anyway." "Yes." "Why?" Dominic was quiet for a long moment. "Because I had a sister, Sophia. She was Grace's age when she died. Nobody helped her. I was too young, too weak. I couldn't save her. But I can save Grace. And I can save you." Anna's eyes filled with tears again. "What do you want from us? Nobody does something like this for free. I want you and Grace to be safe. That's all." "That can't be all. Men like you don't do charity." Dominic finally turned to look at her. "Your debt to Vincent DeLuca is cleared. All $63,000. Paid in full. You don't owe him anything." Anna's mouth fell open. "You paid it? Why would you do that?" "Because debt is how men like Vincent control people. You're not his property. You never were. I can't accept that. I can't owe you. You don't owe me anything. Consider it an investment in making sure Grace grows up with her mother." Anna started crying, and once she started, she couldn't stop. Great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. Grace held her tight, looking up at Dominic with worried eyes. "It's okay, Mommy. Mr. Russo is going to protect us." Anna pulled herself together with visible effort. "What happens now?" she asked. "You and Grace stay here until Vincent DeLuca is no longer a threat. Then we'll talk about what comes next. And if he comes here, if he finds us, he won't. And if he tries, he'll have to go through me and my men. That won't end well for him." There was something absolute in Dominic's voice, a certainty that went beyond confidence into cold fact. Anna believed him. "Grace told me you had a sister. I'm sorry she died." Dominic nodded once. "So am I. But helping you and Grace helps me too. It gives Sophia's death meaning. Makes it matter that I survived when she didn't. He turned toward the door. Rest. Heal. You're safe here. Mr. Russo? Anna called after him. He stopped. Thank you for everything. I know I can't repay you, but thank you. Take care of your daughter. That's payment enough. He left without another word. Anna held Grace close, her mind spinning. They'd been saved by a dangerous man, a killer, someone who lived in a world of violence and blood. But he'd been gentle with Grace, paid Anna's debt without being asked, given them safety without demanding anything in return. Who was Dominic Russo? And what would it cost them to accept his help? Vincent DeLuca sat in his office at Paradise Club, nursing a glass of scotch and waiting. Frank Mason hadn't checked in. Neither had the other 3 men Vincent had sent to the cabin. That meant they were dead. And that meant Dominic Russo had gotten involved. Vincent had known this moment would come eventually. 5 years ago, when Russo killed Anthony, Vincent had sworn revenge. But he'd been smart about it, patient, built his operation, made connections, got protection in place. And when Anna Carter had stumbled onto his money laundering operation, Vincent had seen an opportunity. Kill the woman. Blame it on debt collection. Simple. Except Anna had a daughter. And that daughter had run straight into Dominic Russo. Vincent smiled. Maybe this was better. Cleaner. Instead of years of plotting and planning, he'd get his revenge now. Tonight, Russo would come, and Vincent would be ready. His phone buzzed. Agent Birch. The girl is alive, Birch said without preamble. Russo has her and the mother at his safe house on Riverside. Good. That's where I thought they'd be. Vincent, this is a mistake. You can't go after Russo directly. He's too connected, too powerful. He killed my brother 5 years ago, and your brother was running a trafficking ring. Russo was cleaning up his territory. It was business. It was murder. And now Russo has interfered in my business. That means war. A war you can't win. Maybe, maybe not, but I'm not backing down. Anthony was all I had, and Russo took him from me. So I'm going to take something from Russo. He doesn't care about the woman and kid. You're making this personal for nothing. Then why did he save them? Why did he pay off her debt? Why is he sheltering them? Birch was quiet. Exactly, Vincent said. Russo cares, which means I have leverage. Tell me when he moves. I want to know the second he leaves that safe house. Vincent, I'm warning you. This ends badly. For someone, not for me. Vincent hung up and downed the rest of his scotch. 20 men waited in the club below, armed, ready, loyal. Or at least loyal to the money Vincent paid them. When Russo came, and he would come, Vincent would be ready. This wasn't about the woman anymore. It wasn't even about the money laundering operation. This was about Anthony, about family, about revenge 5 years in the making. Dominic Russo had taken everything from Vincent. Tonight, Vincent would return the favor. Dominic stood in the operations room of his safe house, studying a map of the city spread across a table. Victor, Leo, and James surrounded him. Paradise Club, Dominic said, tapping the location. 20 guards confirmed. Vincent is inside. He knows we're coming. It's a trap, Victor said. Obviously. So we don't go. We wait. Find him when he's vulnerable. No, we go tonight, while he's expecting us, while his attention is focused on defending his club. Leo leaned forward. Boss, if he's expecting us, he'll have every advantage. Cover, numbers, position. He'll have numbers, but he won't have surprise. Dominic pulled out a blueprint of Paradise Club. James had obtained it from city planning records an hour ago. 3 entrances, front door, kitchen entrance in back, emergency exit on the east side. Vincent will have the front and back covered heavy. But the emergency exit is narrow, only fits 1 person at a time. He'll have minimal coverage there. So we hit the emergency exit, James said. No, we hit all 3 at once. Front door is loud, obvious. Victor takes that with 8 men. Heavy assault, maximum noise. Vincent's guards will converge there. Victor nodded. Leo, you take the kitchen entrance with 4 men. Quieter, but still aggressive. Catch them in a crossfire between you and Victor. And you? Leo asked. James and I go through the emergency exit, straight to Vincent's office. While his men are dealing with you, we take him out of the equation. That's suicide, Victor said flatly. If Vincent is smart, he'll have guards in the office with him. You'll walk into a kill box. Probably. But Vincent wants me. He wants revenge for his brother. He'll make sure I get to him. His pride won't let him hide. The 3 men exchanged glances. They'd worked with Dominic for years, long enough to know when he'd made up his mind, long enough to know arguing was pointless. When do we move? Victor asked. 2 hours, midnight, when the club is closed and there's no civilians to worry about. What about Grace and Anna? 5 guards stay here, full lockdown. Nobody gets in or out until we're back. And if we don't come back? Dominic looked at Victor. Then you make sure Grace and Anna get somewhere safe. Set them up with new identities, new city, everything they need. Don't let them end up on the street. Boss, you're talking like you're not coming back. I'm talking like a man who prepares for every outcome. Now gear up. We leave in 90 minutes. The men dispersed to prepare. Dominic stood alone in the operations room, looking at the map of Paradise Club. Vincent DeLuca wanted revenge for a brother who'd died 5 years ago. Dominic understood that. He'd wanted revenge for Sophia for 26 years. The difference was, Anthony DeLuca had been a monster who deserved what he got. Anna Carter was an innocent woman trying to survive. Grace was a child who'd done nothing wrong. And Vincent had tried to kill them both. For that, there would be no mercy. No negotiation, no second chances. Tonight, Vincent DeLuca would learn what happened when you threatened children in Dominic Russo's territory. The city looked different at midnight. The streets emptied of traffic. Streetlights cast pools of yellow that didn't quite touch each other, leaving gaps of shadow in between. Buildings rose like tombstones against a starless sky. Dominic Russo sat in the back of the lead Mercedes, watching the city pass outside his window. James drove in silence. Behind them, 2 more vehicles followed, carrying Victor, Leo, and the assault team. 15 men total, against Vincent DeLuca's 20. The odds were almost fair. Dominic checked his weapon for the 3rd time. Glock 19, 17 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, 2 spare magazines on his belt, a knife strapped to his ankle. He wore body armor beneath his black shirt, though he knew from experience that armor only helped if people aimed for your chest. Most people didn't. His phone buzzed. A message from Victor. In position, waiting for your signal. Dominic pocketed the phone and looked at James. You ready? James's hands were steady on the wheel. Always, boss. If something goes wrong, if I go down, you get out. Don't try to be a hero. With respect, sir, that's not happening. We came in together. We leave together. Dominic didn't argue. Loyalty like that was rare, worth more than money or power or fear. James Chen had been with him for 5 years, started as a hacker, proved himself as a soldier, never questioned orders, never hesitated when things got bloody. The kind of man you wanted at your back when walking into hell. Paradise Club appeared ahead, a 3-story brick building with neon signs advertising live music and cheap drinks. The signs were dark now, the parking lot empty, except for a handful of vehicles, Vincent's cars. Dominic had James drive past without slowing. Emergency exit is on the east side, James said. Alley access. No cameras, no lights. Vincent's confident. Or he wants us to think it's an easy entry. Could be both. James turned down a side street and parked 2 blocks away. They walked the rest of the distance on foot, staying in shadows, moving like ghosts. The alley behind Paradise Club reeked of garbage and stale beer. Dumpsters lined one wall. The emergency exit door was steel, painted red, with a push bar on the inside. No handle on the outside. James pulled a small device from his pocket, attached it to the door's electronic lock. His fingers flew across a tiny keypad. 30 seconds, he whispered. Dominic pressed his earpiece. Victor, status? Victor's voice came back low and tense. Front entrance. 8 guards visible. More inside. On your signal. Leo? Kitchen entrance. 4 guards. They're bored, not expecting trouble yet. Stand by. The device on the door beeped softly. The lock clicked open. James pulled the door open an inch, peering through the gap. Hallway clear. Stairs to the right lead up to second-floor offices. Dominic drew his weapon. Go. They slipped inside, the door closing behind them with a soft click. The interior of Paradise Club was dark. Emergency exit signs provided the only light, casting everything in red. The hallway stretched 20 feet before reaching a T-junction. Stairs on the right, main club floor on the left. Dominic heard voices from the club floor. Men talking, laughing, confident. They thought they were safe. Dominic pressed his earpiece again. All teams, execute. The front entrance of Paradise Club exploded inward. Victor Kane led the assault with 8 men in tactical formation. They came through the door like a storm, weapons raised, shouting commands. Everyone down! Hands where we can see them! The guards inside scrambled for weapons. Victor's team fired first. Suppressed pistols made dull coughing sounds. 3 guards dropped before they cleared their holsters. The other 5 managed to return fire. And suddenly, the club's main floor became a war zone. Bottles shattered behind the bar. Mirrors exploded. Bullets punched through walls and furniture. Victor took cover behind an overturned table, coordinating his team with hand signals. They moved like a machine, each man covering the others, advancing by sections. Another guard went down, then another. The noise was tremendous. Even with suppressors, the gunfire echoed through the building like thunder, exactly as planned. At the kitchen entrance, Leo Torres heard the assault begin. He gave his team the signal. 4 men breached the back door in perfect synchronization. They flowed through the kitchen like water, weapons tracking for targets. 2 guards stood near the walk-in freezer. They turned at the sound of footsteps. Leo dropped them both with headshots before they could raise their weapons. His team continued forward, clearing the kitchen, moving toward the main club floor, where Victor's assault was drawing every available guard. A door burst open. 3 more guards rushed out, pulling weapons. Leo's team engaged. The firefight lasted 10 seconds. All 3 guards went down. Leo pressed forward, coordinating with Victor over the radio. Kitchen secure. Moving to support main assault. Copy that. We've got 12 hostiles down, 8 still active. They're falling back toward the stairs. Understood. We'll cut them off. The 2 teams began a coordinated push, driving Vincent's remaining guards toward the center of the club, trapping them, eliminating them. It was brutal. It was efficient. And it gave Dominic exactly what he needed. Time. Dominic and James moved through the hallway like shadows. The sounds of combat echoed from below, but the second floor remained quiet. Too quiet. He's got men up here, James whispered. Waiting. I know. They reached the stairs and began climbing. Dominic went first, weapon raised, each step deliberate and silent. At the top of the stairs, the hallway split, left toward storage rooms and a small bar area, right toward offices. Vincent's office was at the end of the right hallway. Corner location, windows overlooking the street. The best view. The most defensible position. 2 guards stood outside the office door. They saw Dominic and James at the same moment Dominic saw them. Everyone moved at once. The guard on the left raised his rifle. Dominic fired twice. Both rounds hit center mass. The guard stumbled backward and fell. The guard on the right got his weapon up and fired a 3-round burst. bullet stitched across the wall beside Dominic's head, close enough that he felt the heat. James dropped to one knee and returned fire. His first shot took the guard in the throat. The man went down, choking. Dominic advanced quickly, checking corners, scanning for more threats. The hallway remained empty. Just 2 guards. That was wrong. Vincent should have had the hallway packed with protection. Should have made it impossible to reach his office. Unless he wanted Dominic to reach him. Dominic stopped outside the office door. "It's a trap," James said quietly. "Obviously, we should call for backup. Wait for Victor and Leo. No time. Vincent could have an escape route. We go now." Dominic tried the door handle. Unlocked. He looked at James. "On 3. James nodded, positioning himself to the right of the door. 1. Dominic's heart rate remained steady, 60 beats per minute, the same as always before action. 2. He'd walked into traps before, survived them. This would be no different. 3. Dominic kicked the door open and went in, low and fast, weapon tracking for targets. Vincent DeLuca's office was larger than expected. Mahogany desk, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, expensive artwork on the walls, and 6 men with rifles pointed at the doorway. Vincent DeLuca sat behind his desk, a glass of scotch in his hand, smiling. "Dominic Russo, I was wondering when you'd arrive. Please, come in. Bring your friend." Dominic stood in the doorway, weapon still raised, calculating angles and odds. 6 rifles against 2 pistols. Even if he and James were perfect, even if every shot hit, they'd both be dead before taking down more than 3 targets. "Put the guns down," Vincent said conversationally, "or my men will cut you in half. Your choice." Dominic lowered his weapon slowly. James did the same. 2 of Vincent's men rushed forward, disarming them, patting them down, removing spare magazines and Dominic's ankle knife. "Bring them closer," Vincent ordered. The guards shoved Dominic and James forward until they stood 5 feet from Vincent's desk. Vincent took a sip of scotch, studying Dominic over the rim of his glass. "You look like him," Vincent said quietly. "Anthony, my brother, you have the same eyes, cold, like you don't feel anything. I feel plenty, just not for men like your brother. Men like him, he was family, he was blood, and you killed him. He was a monster who trafficked women. He got what he deserved." Vincent's hand tightened on his glass. He was trying to build something, make money, provide for his family. You destroyed that. He was destroying lives. 23 women, some as young as 15. He kept them in cages, Vincent. Sold them like property. Don't you dare compare that to legitimate business. "Legitimate?" Vincent laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "You run a criminal empire. You kill people. You control territory through fear and violence. What makes you different from Anthony? I don't hurt children. I don't traffic human beings. And I don't pretend what I do is anything but what it is." Vincent stood, walking around his desk to stand directly in front of Dominic. "You killed my brother. You took the only family I had. For 5 years, I've waited for the right moment to make you pay. So you hung an innocent woman from a tree, terrorized an 8-year-old child. That's your revenge? That's my message. You interfere in my business. You protect people who cross me. This is what happens." Dominic's voice dropped to something cold and final. "Anna Carter didn't cross you. She saw your money laundering operation, and you panicked. You tried to kill her to cover your tracks. And you involved her daughter, a child. Collateral damage? No, a choice. You chose to hurt a child, and for that, you're going to die." Vincent laughed again. "Look around, Russo. You're surrounded. Your men are downstairs, fighting for their lives. And you're in my office, unarmed, outnumbered, 6-1. I'm not the one dying tonight." Dominic smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Vincent, you made one critical mistake." "What's that?" "You assumed I came here to negotiate." Dominic's eyes flicked to the window behind Vincent's desk. The glass exploded inward. Leo Torres had taken position on the rooftop across the street the moment the assault began. He'd waited, patient and still, for Dominic to give him the signal. The smile had been the signal. Leo's rifle cracked once. The bullet entered Vincent's office at 2,000 feet per second. It hit the nearest guard in the head. The man dropped instantly. Before the other guards could react, the window shattered completely as Victor's team breached from the hallway behind them. The office became chaos. Dominic dropped to the floor, rolled toward the fallen guard, came up with the man's rifle. He fired without hesitation. One guard down, 2, 3. James moved with identical precision, disarming a guard and using the man's own weapon against him. Victor's team poured through the door, engaging the remaining guards. The firefight lasted 15 seconds. When the smoke cleared, all 6 guards were dead. Vincent DeLuca stood pressed against the wall, unarmed, eyes wide with shock. Dominic walked toward him slowly, rifle pointed at Vincent's chest. "Your men are dead or running," Dominic said quietly. "Your operation is finished, and you're going to answer for what you did to Anna Carter and her daughter." Vincent straightened, trying to find some dignity in defeat. "You going to kill me, Russo? Just like you killed Anthony?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you're smart enough to do what I tell you." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" "Names. Everyone in your organization. Police on your payroll. Politicians who take your money. Cartel contacts. Everyone. You give me everything, and I let you live. In prison. Better than dead." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, bitter and broken. "You think I'm going to rat? Become an informant? I'd rather die." "Then you'll die. But before you do, you'll know that Grace Carter is going to grow up safe. That Anna Carter will never have to be afraid again. That everything you tried to do to them failed. That your revenge for Anthony accomplished nothing except getting yourself killed." Something in Vincent's face changed. A flicker of doubt, of fear. "The girl," he said quietly. "Grace, she's really okay?" "No thanks to you, but yes, she's safe, and she's going to stay that way." Vincent looked down at the floor. "Anthony would have killed her. If he'd been in my position, he would have killed both of them without hesitation. I'm my brother's brother, but maybe I don't have to be." He looked up at Dominic. "Okay, I'll talk. I'll give you everything, but you have to promise me something. I'm not in the business of making deals with men who hurt children. Promise me the girl never knows. Grace, don't tell her I gave up. Let her think I died fighting. Let her think I was strong to the end. I don't want her growing up knowing I broke." Dominic studied Vincent's face. Pride. Even now, even defeated and facing death or prison, Vincent cared about his reputation. "Why do you care what an 8-year-old thinks of you?" "Because she's a kid, and kids should think monsters are strong, unbeatable. It makes them feel safer when the monsters lose. But if she knows I broke, if she knows I begged, she'll always wonder if other monsters might break too. She'll always be afraid." There was something almost human in Vincent's eyes, almost decent. "Fine," Dominic said. "Grace will never know you cooperated. Now start talking." 2 hours later, Dominic walked back into his safe house. Victor had stayed behind with Leo and James to secure Paradise Club and coordinate with the federal agents who'd descended on the scene. Vincent's confession had opened up an investigation that would take months to fully unravel. Dozens of arrests, millions in seized assets, a cartel pipeline shut down. But Dominic didn't care about any of that. He cared about the little girl who was probably still awake, waiting to know if he'd survived. He climbed the stairs to the second floor, his body aching in a dozen places. He'd taken a few hits during the firefight. Nothing serious, bruises, a grazed shoulder. The armor had stopped the worst of it. Grace's door was cracked open. Soft light spilled into the hallway. Dominic knocked gently. "Come in," Grace's small voice called. He pushed the door open. Grace sat on the bed, still fully dressed, a book in her lap that she clearly hadn't been reading. When she saw Dominic, her face transformed with relief. "You're okay." She jumped off the bed and ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Dominic stood very still, not sure what to do. Physical affection was foreign to him. He'd spent 26 years building walls, maintaining distance, never letting anyone close enough to matter. But Grace held on tight, and slowly, carefully, Dominic put his hands on her shoulders. "I'm okay," he said quietly. Grace pulled back, looking up at him. "Did you stop Mr. DeLuca? Is he gone?" "He's gone. He can't hurt you or your mother anymore." "Is he dead?" Dominic knelt down, so he was eye level with Grace. "He's in custody. The police have him. He's going to prison for a very long time." Grace processed this information seriously. "Good. I hope he stays there forever." "He will." Grace threw her arms around Dominic's neck, hugging him fiercely. "Thank you. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for being here." And there it was, the moment Dominic had been avoiding for 26 years. Someone depending on him. Someone trusting him. Someone looking at him like he was a hero instead of a killer. He hugged Grace back, his throat tight. "You're welcome." They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Grace pulled back, studying his face. "Mr. Russo, can I ask you something? Always, when we leave here, when Mommy and me go home, will we ever see you again?" The question hit Dominic harder than any bullet. He could lie, should lie, tell her that yes, of course they'd see each other. Make it easy. But Grace deserved the truth. "I don't know," he said honestly. "My life is dangerous. The things I do, the enemies I have. It's not safe for people to be around me. Being near me puts you and your mother at risk." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "But I want to see you. You're my friend." Something in Dominic's chest cracked. He'd had soldiers, associates, people who worked for him out of loyalty or fear or profit. But a friend, he couldn't remember the last time someone had called him that. "I want to see you too," he said quietly. "More than you know, but I have to keep you safe. That's the most important thing. What if we stayed here? What if we didn't leave? You can't stay here forever. You have a life, school, friends. Your mother has work. You can't live in a safe house." Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that changed everything. "What if you came with us? What if you stopped doing dangerous things and just lived with me and Mommy?" Dominic's throat closed completely. A normal life. No more violence. No more blood. No more looking over his shoulder, waiting for the next threat. Just mornings with breakfast, and evenings with homework, and weekends with whatever normal families did. It sounded like heaven, and completely impossible. "I can't," he said. "I have responsibilities, people who depend on me. I can't just walk away." "Why not?" "Because that's not how my world works." "Then change your world." The simple logic of a child. If you don't like something, change it. As if it were that easy. "It's more complicated than that," Dominic said. "You're just scared." Dominic stared at her. "What?" "You're scared. Of being happy. Of having a family. You think if you care about people, they'll die like your sister did. So you don't let anyone close." For 8 years old, Grace Carter was impossibly perceptive. And completely right. "Maybe I am scared," Dominic admitted, "but that doesn't change anything. You and your mother need to live normal lives, away from me." Grace's tears spilled over. "That's not fair. You saved us. You're supposed to stay." "Life isn't fair, Grace. I learned that a long time ago." Grace wiped her eyes angrily. "Well, I don't accept that. You're my friend, and friends don't leave." She turned away from him, climbing back onto the bed, pulling the blanket over herself like armor. "Grace," Dominic started. "Go away. I don't want to talk to you anymore." Dominic stood, his heart heavy. He'd survived gunfights and wars, and 26 years in a world of violence. But an 8-year-old girl's tears brought him to his knees. He left the room quietly, closing the door behind him. Anna Carter was awake when Dominic knocked on her door. "Come in," she called. Dominic entered to find Anna sitting up in bed, her bandaged wrists resting on top of the blanket. Dr. Torres had done good work. The wounds would heal. Might leave scars, but they'd heal. "You're back," Anna said. "Vincent? In custody. Confess to everything. You won't have to testify. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison." Anna's shoulders dropped with relief. So profound, she started crying. Dominic stood awkwardly by the door, not sure what to do. "Thank you," Anna managed between sobs. "Thank you. I thought we were going to die. I thought Grace would grow up without a mother. Or worse, that Vincent would kill her too. But you stopped him. You saved us. Grace saved you. She's the brave one. She told me what you said about your sister. I'm so sorry." Dominic nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Anna wiped her eyes. "What happens now? Do we go home? Back to our apartment?" "That apartment isn't safe. Vincent's operation is shut down, but some of his men escaped. They might try to retaliate. And Paradise Club is a crime scene. You can't work there anymore. So what do we do? Where do we go?" Dominic had been thinking about this for hours. "I have a proposal. There's a city 3 hours north. Smaller, quieter. I have contacts there. I can set you up with a new apartment, a new job, new school for Grace. Fresh start, clean slate." Anna stared at him. "You'd do that? For us? You deserve a chance to live without fear. Let me give you that. But we'd never see you again." Dominic was quiet. "No, you wouldn't." Anna looked down at her bandaged wrists. "Grace asked you to stay with us, didn't she?" "How did you know?" "Because that's what I wanted to ask too. But I'm 34 years old. I know the world doesn't work like that. You can't just walk away from your life." "No, I can't. Grace doesn't understand that yet. She's 8. She thinks heroes can do anything. I'm not a hero." Anna looked up at him, her eyes sharp. "You saved my daughter. You paid off my debt. You risked your life to stop Vincent. Maybe you don't think you're a hero, but Grace does. And so do I. I've killed people, Anna. More than I can count. I run a criminal empire. I'm not a good man. Maybe not. But you were good to us. That has to count for something." Dominic walked to the window, looking out at the night. "My sister Sophia died because no one cared enough to help her. For 26 years, I've been trying to make up for that, to use my power, to protect people who can't protect themselves. But I can't be there all the time. I can't save everyone. You saved us. That's enough." "Is it? Because Grace is crying in her room right now. I hurt her. By trying to keep her safe, I hurt her anyway." Anna was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Russo, can I tell you something?" "Please, call me Dominic." "Dominic." Grace's father left when she was 2 years old. Just walked out one day and never came back. Since then, she's never had a man in her life she could trust. No father figure, no one to make her feel safe. But in 2 days, you've become that person for her. You've shown her what it's like to have someone strong who protects instead of abandons. I don't want to abandon her, but staying would put her in danger. So would leaving. Different kind of danger. The kind where she learns that people always leave, that you can't trust anyone, that being vulnerable only leads to pain. Anna's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not saying you have to stay forever. I'm not asking you to marry me or become Grace's father. But maybe you could visit, once a month, just to show her that you didn't disappear, that she matters to you." Dominic turned from the window. "Once a month, or every few months, whatever you can manage. Just don't vanish completely. She'll understand that you have your own life, but she needs to know she's part of it." It was a compromise. Not the clean break Dominic had planned, but maybe a better solution. "I can do that," he said quietly. "I can visit." Anna smiled through her tears. "Thank you. That's all I ask." 3 days later, Dominic drove Anna and Grace to their new home. The city was called Silverton. Population 15,000. Nestled in the mountains 3 hours north of where Vincent's operation had been. Clean air, good schools, low crime rate. The apartment Dominic had arranged was on the second floor of a new building. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, view of the mountains, furniture included, first and last month's rent paid. Anna had a job waiting at a local restaurant, not Paradise Club, somewhere clean and safe where the owner didn't run money laundering operations. Good tips, regular hours. Grace had been enrolled in elementary school, 4th grade, starting next week. Everything arranged, everything handled. Dominic carried the last box up the stairs and set it in the living room. "That's everything," he said. Anna looked around the apartment, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe this is ours. I can't believe this is real." "It's real. You're safe, both of you." Grace stood by the window, looking out at the mountains. She hadn't said much during the drive, hadn't looked at Dominic directly, still angry about him leaving. Dominic walked over to her. "Grace?" She didn't turn around. "I'm still mad at you. I know. You're leaving, just like everyone leaves. I'm not leaving forever. I'm going to visit. Once a month. Your mother and I talked about it." Grace turned to look at him, her eyes cautious. "Really? You promise?" "I promise. First Saturday of every month. I'll come up, take you and your mom to lunch, spend the day. We'll do whatever you want." "Anything?" "Within reason." Grace studied his face, looking for lies, finding none. "Okay," she said quietly. "I guess that's better than nothing. It's the best I can do. My life is complicated, but you're important to me, so I'll make time." Grace thought about this. Then she held out her pinky finger. "Pinky promise." Dominic looked at the offered pinky, then at Grace's serious face. "What?" "It's a pinky promise. You hook your pinky with mine, and it's a promise you can't break. Ever. And if I break it, then you're a liar, and I'll never trust you again." The stakes were clear. Dominic hooked his pinky with Grace's. "I promise. First Saturday of every month." "No matter what. No matter what." Grace squeezed his pinky tight. Then she threw her arms around him in a fierce hug. "I'm going to hold you to that. I know you will." Anna joined them, putting her hand on Grace's shoulder. "We should let Mr. Russo go. He has a long drive back." "Dominic," he corrected. "Please, just Dominic." "Dominic, then." She extended her hand. He shook it. "Thank you," Anna said, "for everything. You gave us our lives back. You fought to keep them. I just helped." Dominic headed for the door. Grace called after him. "Dominic?" He turned. "What?" "Your sister, Sophia. I think she'd be proud of you." Dominic's chest tightened. "Why?" "Because you saved me. And maybe that means she didn't die for nothing. Maybe it means something good came from something bad. Out of the mouths of children." Grace Carter was 8 years old and wiser than Dominic had been at 38. "Maybe you're right," he said quietly. "I know I am. See you next month." "See you next month." Dominic left the apartment and walked to his car. Victor was waiting in the driver's seat. "Ready to go, boss?" Dominic looked up at the apartment building. Grace stood in the window, waving. He waved back. "Yeah," he said. "Let's go home." 6 months later, Dominic kept his promise. First Saturday of every month, like clockwork, he made the 3-hour drive to Silverton. In March, he took Grace and Anna to lunch at a diner that served the best pancakes Grace had ever tasted. They talked about school, about Grace's new friends, about the mountains. In April, they went to a movie. Some animated thing about talking animals that Dominic pretended to hate, but secretly enjoyed. In May, they hiked a trail through the forest. Grace pointed out birds and flowers, chattering nonstop. Anna walked beside Dominic, comfortable in the silence. In June, Grace's birthday, Dominic brought presents, books, a new backpack for school, and a locket with a picture of Grace and her mother inside. Grace wore it every day after that. In July, they went to a county fair. Dominic won Grace a giant stuffed bear at the ring toss game. She named it Dominic Jr. In August, they just sat in the park. Grace practiced reading aloud from her summer reading list while Dominic listened. 6 months of Saturdays. 6 months of being part of something normal. 6 months of remembering what it felt like to be human. And slowly, Grace's anger faded. Slowly, she started to trust that he wouldn't disappear. Slowly, Dominic realized something terrifying. He loved this child. Not like a boss loves a soldier. Not like a criminal loves power. Like a father loves a daughter. It was September when everything changed. Dominic arrived at the apartment on the first Saturday, as always. But this time, Anna opened the door with tears in her eyes. "What's wrong?" Dominic demanded. "Is Grace hurt?" "No, she's fine. She's in her room." "But Dominic, we need to talk." They sat at the kitchen table. Anna's hands shook as she poured coffee. "Grace asked me something this week," Anna said quietly. "She asked if you could adopt her. Officially. Legally." Dominic's world tilted. "What?" "She wants you to be her father, not just someone who visits. Her actual father." "Anna, I can't do that. I'm a criminal. My life is dangerous." "The courts would never approve it anyway." "Actually, they might. I've been talking to a lawyer. If you're willing to step back from your operations, establish legitimate businesses, show that you can provide a stable home, the adoption could go through." "You want me to leave my organization?" "I want you to consider it. For Grace, for yourself." Dominic stood, pacing. "I can't just walk away. I have responsibilities. People depend on me. And Grace depends on you, too. The question is, which matters more?" It was the same question he'd been avoiding for 6 months. "I need time to think about this." "Of course. Take all the time you need. But Dominic, Grace loves you. She looks forward to your visits more than anything. And I think, if you're honest with yourself, you love her too." Anna's voice was gentle. "I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not asking for anything for myself. I'm just asking you to think about giving Grace what she wants, what she needs. A father who stays." Dominic looked toward Grace's room. Through the door, he could hear her singing to herself. Happy, safe, thriving. "Let me talk to her," he said. Grace was drawing at her desk when Dominic knocked. "Come in." He entered to find her surrounded by papers covered in crayon artwork, stick figures, houses, trees, and in the center of every picture, 3 people. A woman, a girl, and a man. Grace saw him looking. "That's you," she said, pointing to the man. "That's me and Mommy and you, together. Your mom told me what you asked her." Grace's face went serious. "About adoption?" "Yes." "Are you mad?" "No, I'm not mad. But Grace, do you understand what you're asking? Adoption means forever. It means I'd be your legal father, responsible for you, part of your family. I know, that's what I want. But my life is complicated, dangerous. I'm not like other fathers." Grace put down her crayon and walked over to him. "I don't want other fathers. I want you. You're the one who saved me and Mommy. You're the one who visits every month, even though it's a long drive. You're the one who remembers my favorite color, and what books I like, and how I don't like onions." She took his hand. "You're already my dad. I just want it to be official." Dominic knelt down so they were eye level. "If I say yes, things would have to change. I'd have to leave my organization, find different work, be here more often, maybe move to Silverton. Would you do that? For me? Would he? Could he?" Dominic thought about the past 6 months. The Saturdays spent being normal. The way Grace's face lit up when he arrived. The way Anna trusted him. The way he'd started to feel like maybe he could be something other than a killer. He thought about Sophia, about the 8-year-old girl who died because no one cared enough. And he thought about Grace, about the 8-year-old girl who lived because he'd chosen to care. Maybe this was his redemption, not just saving Grace once, but being there for her. Every day, every moment, being the father Sophia never got to have. "Yes," Dominic said quietly. "I would do that. For you." Grace threw her arms around his neck, squeezing tight. Really? You mean it? I mean it. If your mother agrees, if the courts allow it, I'll adopt you. Officially. Legally. Forever. Grace pulled back, her face glowing. Can I call you Dad? Dominic's throat closed. He'd never been called that before. Never thought he would be. Yes, he managed. You can call me Dad. Grace hugged him again, laughing through happy tears. And for the first time in 26 years, Dominic Russo felt something he'd thought was lost forever. Hope. 1 year later, the courthouse in Silverton wasn't large. Just a single courtroom with wooden benches and American flags flanking the judge's bench. Dominic stood before Judge Morrison, Anna beside him, Grace between them, holding both their hands. Victor, Leo, and James sat in the back row. They'd come to support their boss, their friend. The past year had been transformative. Dominic had done exactly what he'd promised. Stepped back from his criminal operations, handed control to Leo with Victor as his second. Established legitimate businesses. Consulting, security, investment. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous. He'd moved to Silverton, bought a house big enough for 3, spent his days being a father and learning what normal felt like. It hadn't been easy. Some habits were hard to break. The constant vigilance, the assumption that violence was always one wrong word away, the inability to fully relax. But Grace had helped. Every morning at breakfast, she'd tell him about her dreams. Every evening, she'd read him her homework. Every weekend, they'd explore the mountains together. And slowly, day by day, Dominic had learned to be something other than what he'd been. He'd learned to be a father. Now, Judge Morrison looked down at them with kind eye. Mr. Russo, you're petitioning to adopt Grace Carter. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And Ms. Carter, you consent to this adoption? I do, Your Honor. Completely. And Grace, do you want Mr. Russo to be your father? Grace looked up at Dominic, her eyes shining. Yes, more than anything, Judge Morrison smiled. Then by the power vested in me by the state, I hereby grant this petition. Dominic Russo, you are now the legal father of Grace Russo. Congratulations. He banged his gavel. Grace screamed with joy and jumped into Dominic's arms. He caught her, holding her tight, his eyes wet for the first time in 26 years. I love you, Dad, Grace whispered. I love you too, sweetheart. Anna wrapped her arms around both of them. In the back row, Victor, Leo, and James stood and applauded. It was done. Official. Legal. Forever. 5 years later, Grace Carter Russo stood in her bedroom, packing for college. She was 18 now. Smart, strong, confident. She'd been accepted to Harvard Law School on a full scholarship. Her dream was to become an attorney, to defend people who couldn't defend themselves, to be the voice for the voiceless, just like her father had been for her. Dominic watched from the doorway, his heart full and breaking at the same time. You don't have to help me pack, Dad. I can do it. I know, but I want to. Grace smiled at him. You're going to cry when I leave, aren't you? Absolutely not. I'm a grown man, former crime lord. I don't cry. Liar. She was right. He absolutely was going to cry. Grace walked over and hugged him. Thank you, Dad, for everything, for saving me and Mom, for staying, for being my father, for showing me what it means to be strong and kind at the same time. You did that yourself. I just gave you a safe place to grow. You gave me more than that. You gave me a chance, a life, a future. She pulled back, looking up at him. I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to help people, just like you helped us. You already make me proud. Every single day. Grace hugged him one more time, then went back to packing. Dominic watched his daughter, marveling at the miracle of her existence. 13 years ago, a little girl had run out of the fog, begging for help. He'd almost driven away, almost left her to die with her mother. But something had stopped him. Some ghost of Sophia, maybe. Some last spark of humanity he'd thought was dead. He'd saved Grace Carter, and in doing so, she'd saved him.